Hello, I'm Nichole Jordan, National Managing Partner of Markets, Clients, and Industry at Grant Thornton, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by Cheryl Francis, co-founder of the Corporate Leadership Center. And Cheryl, I'm so happy to have you with us today.
It's great to be with you, Nichole.
Wonderful, thank you. And for those who don't know about the Corporate Leadership Center, will you please tell us your mission and some of the things you have accomplished?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as you actually know already, I co-founded Corporate Leadership Center with my partner, Sheila Penrose, and we both had successful corporate careers. So Sheila was the president of the Northern Trust Bank here in Chicago. I was the CFO at R.R. Donnelley, another global public company. We both sat on public company boards. We are both involved with universities and in the civic community, so we kind of have this nexus of networks and experiences. And when we stepped out of our corporate roles, we had breakfast one morning, looked each other in the eye and said, you know, we spent the last 25 years doing what everybody else wanted. What do we want to do? And we decided to create Corporate Leadership Center. So it's a nonprofit, first of all, and our mission, of course, is all about developing leaders and leadership practices, but we're focused on those areas where we think we have something unique and valuable to bring to the marketplace that never existed before. So if somebody else is doing it, we don't need to, so we're only doing those unique and valuable things where we have some insight and expertise. And as a result, we only have two programs. One is called CEO Perspectives, which you know well because you've been through that program, and the other is called Leading Women Executives. And the thing that is kind of the thought process behind each of them is that they're each focused on an inflection point in people's careers where you have to change your behaviors and your thinking patterns in order to be successful. So for example, CEO Perspectives is for people that report to the CEOs of their organizations, so executive committee members. And the idea behind that is you can get to a certain level simply by having a functional expertise or running a piece of the enterprise, but when you get to the executive committee, you have to embrace the entire enterprise agenda. And that agenda is the same regardless of the organization that you're in. So we needed to put together a program that would accelerate people's ability to take on the CEO's agenda, that enterprise level agenda. So that's the inflection point for CEO Perspectives. Leading Women Executives, it's a couple layers lower in the organization. And the inflection point there, this one's all for women, CEO Perspectives, men and women. So in the women's program, it's about when women move from management to leadership responsibilities, which we know by research is where a lot of women either stall out or leave their organizations. So the focus on Leading Women Executives is to work both with the women around their leadership skills and with the organizations through our structure to pull more women through that inflection point into senior management. So those were the big ideas, and they've worked well.
They have, Cheryl. It's wonderful to see, and I just congratulate you and Sheila on all that you have achieved through these programs. And as you know, I am a fellow of CEO Perspectives, and I can tell you firsthand just the great value that I have found, and I go back to the principles many times that you all taught us. You brought in just amazing CEOs to share their perspectives.
Exactly.
You opened your Rolodex, which is highly valuable, you know everybody, and really brought them in to have candid conversations with us. And how did you know to focus in on that particular side of the program?
Right. So as I said, Sheila and I were both executives ourselves.
Yes.
And we sat on company boards where you have to worry about succession. And we just saw that as missing. We saw too many people who'd been good in whatever their particular role was up to the point of executive committee membership, being very successful and then struggling when they got to that level of having to be agenda, enterprise-wide. It's just not necessarily a natural thing. And a lot of the business schools will have programs targeted to that level of people, but they tend to be functional. So they'll be about finance or marketing or organizational behavior. Right. Whereas these issues, an example would be growth and innovation. Every organization is trying to figure out how do we grow, how do we be innovative. Those kinds of issues, the CEO's agenda cross all of the disciplines. And so there was no structure in the marketplace to address those, and that's what we did through CEO Perspectives. And we do see it making a difference, both for the people that come through the program and for their companies.
Oh, absolutely. So I can speak firsthand to that. And so I want to talk about each one of the programs.
Sure.
With CEO Perspectives, How long have you been running the program? What are some of the outcomes, the milestones you are most proud of?
Right, so many.
Yes.
But we've been running that program for 15 years, so we've been able to
Wow.
put together quite a track record. We have close to 400 fellows, such as yourself, alums of the program at this point in time. Among that universe of people, 1 in every 8 of them has gone on to become a public company CEO. 1 of every 5 of them sits on a public company board. We know that they've been successful. The companies, more than 2/3 of them, continue to use the program, so they're putting through multiple executives, often their entire management or executive team over a period of time. So we know the companies find it valuable, they're sending us the right people, and the people go on to do great things, again, for themselves, for their companies, and as I sit on public company boards, increasingly kind of out in the universe, working through other civic organizations and other companies.
Absolutely. And isn't that the best way to know the value, to hear directly from your customer and the fact that they are bringing in their entire management team to go through your programs?
Yes.
Just really high accolades. So that's
and
terrific.
a great privilege, obviously, for us
Sure.
to be able to work with these wonderful people.
Well,
Right.
I know that you take it very seriously, and as a participant, I felt that at the time that you took it very seriously. You and Sheila are very committed, and at the same time, your expectations are very high.
Right.
And I think that just fosters a great culture within CEO perspectives. So how do you, as you look ahead, what else do you aspire to achieve? You all have achieved so much. What's your vision for the next several years?
Right. So CEO perspectives we talked about, and we didn't really get to leading women executives. Maybe I'll
Sure,
backtrack
absolutely.
and go there,
Please do.
and then we can talk about the future.
Yes.
So leading women executives has not been running as long. It's about 10 years. We're celebrating
Wow.
our 10th year anniversary this year. And as you know, that program we run twice a year, and CEO Perspectives just once a year, because the demand has been very great for that program. And in fact, in 2020, we're going to move to a cycle of 3 programs a year, again, because the demand has been so great. And so,
Congratulations.
yes, thank you. And with that program, when we think about the success, we can see progress by the women. So we work with the women on their leadership skills, but the structure of the program also brings the company into the mix and into the conversation. So along with the women attending, every company assigns a senior executive to be an advocate for each of the women, someone not in her reporting line that she would not normally have the ability to work closely with. And that's important because women's networks internally tend not to be as strong as their male counterparts, so it's a way of giving her greater access than she'd otherwise have.
Yes.
But over time, we see companies, again, sending multiple groups of women to the program. And as they do that, more senior executives get exposure as advocates, and we begin to see the organization change. So as a third-party provider, you know this, you're a third-party
Yes.
provider, we can have a direct impact on the women, and we know that's really powerful. They tell us that all the time. It's a life-changing experience for them. But our other mission is to change the organization, and we can't do that directly. But as we send the women back into the organization and more senior executives have been their advocates and kind of understand these issues more deeply and broadly than they did previously, the tipping point starts to occur where the organization can make change itself. So I'll give you an example.
Yes, please do.
So in the Chicago area, there's a company called CDW, a very well-known organization, a great client of ours. So at this point in time, CDW has sent 25 women through the program, so multiple years of people coming through the program. They've had more than a dozen of their senior executives be advocates. And January 1 of this year, a new CDW CEO was appointed. Her name is Chris Leahy. She, like you, is a fellow of CEO Perspectives. And one of the first things that Chris Leahy did was to appoint a COO, who is another Chris and another woman. And so we have this kind of sea change happening at CDW. We certainly can't take credit for that, but we do see that we've populated their leadership with people who can think about this issue very productively and actually change the business practices that make that company a great place for women, a great place for everybody, obviously.
That's great, Cheryl. And We just had the opportunity to join over lunch with your wonderful cohort in Leading Women's Executives, and I had the chance to have lunch with several of the participants and hear some of their feedback directly.
Great.
And I would agree with you and just echo the sentiment that this is a real milestone in their career development, and something that we don't do often. Gives them that space to allow for self-reflection,
Right.
and to allow for really that vision of where can they create the most value, where do they want to go,
Right.
and be supported by each other. And I think building that capability, which is so important, Cheryl, of that enterprise level view
Right.
early on in their careers, that's very powerful.
Right. And as you said, they join this powerful network of women. And because of the fact that we offer this program more times per year, we actually have an alumni base of close to 600 women
Wow.
at this point, who we connect through events, but increasingly are doing that online. Because one of the things, as you know, as you talked about at lunch, that they really value is being able to have other professional, accomplished women from different industries, different companies as part of their network, people that they can use as sounding boards. And it's great to have that when they're in the program, but we want it to continue when they move on, all of them in their careers, so that they continue to have that support and people to help them think through dilemmas and all those things that you and I need, right? We all
Yes,
need in order to be
absolutely.
successful.
Yes.
So,
Well, it is great to see the network that they are building, and just the companies that you have as your clients and your members in a corporate leadership center are the growth of the future. So it's an incredible organization to be a part of. It's the right network. I think it helps them build the right capabilities that are needed for their leadership in the future. So tell us a little bit about what you see ahead for Leading Women Executives
Right.
and for CEO Perspectives.
right. So we said a little bit about leading women executives, where we're going to kind of crank up the volume.
For 3 sessions a
Three
year,
sessions
yes.
instead of 2. So that's
Wonderful.
actually a challenge because we're a very small organization. So we'll take that on. And as I said, also we're trying to do more in the digital arena to connect our alumni, particularly for leading women executives. So we've launched a LinkedIn network and trying to populate that so that the 600 people can connect and learn from each other, not just the cohort that went through. So we're working on things like
Wonderful.
that. CEO Perspectives, we've kind of branched out in terms of the people that are coming into the room. So you'll recall that you see 24 sitting CEOs and kind of an off-the-record roundtable conversation when you're with us around these issues. That continues, and the CEOs have been great in terms of their actually
valuable.
excitement to show up. They love being there, so it works on both sides. But before we had primarily academics as the other voice in the room, and we've now moved to include experts in other arenas and practitioners. So people who are expert in the political arena, for example, because the higher up you go in the organization, that's an important constituent group for that. People who are out of a very different mode than these large, complex organizations we tend to deal with. So people from Silicon Valley coming in and kind of talking about how they think about growth, innovation, entrepreneurship, allocation of capital, all of those
Excellent.
things. So we're trying to expand the voices in the room so that the people who are sitting around that CEO table after they go through CEO Perspectives can have as many tools and ideas to pull from as possible so that their organization can be fleet of foot, moving forward, all of those things that we like to see. I should mention one other thing from CEO Perspectives, which we didn't talk about, and that is every year we have 2 people in the room who come through on scholarship. They are from community organizations, so they're the CEOs of civic organizations, social service agencies, things of that sort. And we've always had that in the room from the beginning because we think the voice of the community is actually a really important voice to have in the room as well. And the people from the community organizations they've got a lot of the same issues, right? And they need the same skill sets and tools, so they get a lot of value in that regard. But the corporate leaders also value what they have to say greatly, because it's a slightly different view about how society works, and the higher up you go in the organization, the more you have to kind of be concerned about the entire reputation of the company and how it operates in the world. And you can't just focus only on investors. It's a broad set of constituents. So the community voice has also kind of been a really powerful voice to have there.
And I remember, Cheryl, just in my own cohort, that community voice was really incredible, and we learned a lot from them.
Right.
So it's terrific. It had the balance of community, certainly the political side that you're mentioning, and then, of course, every aspect of business. And you had the academic perspective, you had the CEO perspective, and now you've added this wonderful expert point of view. And I have heard the feedback, and it is so positive so far, and I know you're just a few months into this year's
to the new model. Yes,
model.
That's
okay.
right. And beyond that, we'll keep evolving. The programs have always evolved from day one. We get a lot of feedback, as you know, from the participants as they're going through. And the fact that the structure is such that you kind of come together and then you're back in your back in the saddle, back at the office for a while, and then you come together again. Giving us feedback the whole time allows us to be very nimble about changing the curriculum to those areas that seem most important, either in the world or to that particular group of people. So we can tailor it to some degree for the people that are in the room at that particular point in time. So having that flexibility is actually a way where we test ideas, and so it's constantly evolving, and the future will be like that as well. We've got to stay relevant and valuable, so that's our intent. But the other piece is that we at Corporate Leadership Center, Sheila and I, as founders, are going through succession ourselves, right? So one of the elements of the future is to determine how this whole organization can continue to grow and thrive and be sustainable beyond us. And so we're working very hard on that as well. We have a great board of directors, a lot of corporate luminaries. And we are hoping that sometime next year we'll actually be naming a CEO who is also a luminary. And so stay tuned for that. And that will then allow Sheila and I to move kind of away from the more hands-on and increasingly to more of an advisory role to kind of see our legacy grow in the hands of the next people that want to take it forward. So to us, that's very exciting.
Well, Cheryl, I just want to congratulate you. We are so privileged to be a part of your program, and I think about all that you and Sheila have contributed, and this legacy that you leave is really incredible in building that next generation of leaders in so many major companies that are really the heart of America. So thank you and congratulations to you and Sheila. And I want to see if we can pivot a little bit into kind of a second piece of the conversation. Knowing your great success here, and also I know, as I mentioned a moment ago, you have had incredible executive leadership positions, you have incredible board positions, you have opened up your Rolodex to really get this program going, and everyone is benefiting. But what are some of the guidelines or advice that you might have for others as they are getting involved in boards, as they are kind of going down a path similar to what you have done with great executive impact and great board impact?
Right. Well, so as I mentioned, CEO Perspectives is actually becoming a great source for board members, that we see so many of the people that come through our program then being tapped to take on their first public board experience. And interestingly, I talked about the number of people being named CEOs. We see those CEOs going back and tapping people out of their cohort to join their board where there's an opportunity and a fit for that to happen. So kind of the network in action.
Excellent.
So I think, as you know, getting on a board is a process where you have to be invited. And so getting your name in front of people who are going to be making the decision about who do they want serving on a particular board of directors is really important. So again, back to the network, you need to be visible. You need to have connections with people that respect you, have kind of seen you in action, and would love to be your partner on a board in order for that to happen. So we see that very much happening at CEO Perspectives. The Leading Women Executives program, our first mission is to get more women through that inflection point, and then they can be considered for board positions. But just generally, the first board I served on was the school board, actually. I got elected to the school board when my oldest son was in kindergarten. And so I thought, the PTA meets during the day, I can't be there for that, but the school board, they meet at night.
I can do that.
I can do that. And so that was actually a formative experience for me. Not that it would give me credit on my resume for somebody looking for a board member with kind of some experience, but it made me feel very comfortable in the setting of having to govern a body of an organization. And I learned a lot of tools and tricks, and I learned it wasn't so difficult and that I kind of had an aptitude for it. So then when I was invited to be on a public company board, it felt very natural. And I kind of knew how to behave and what the issues would be. So I would recommend people that think they have this in their future. Any not-for-profit board would love to have anybody from Grant Thornton on their board. Wonderful. And so that's kind of a training ground, an opportunity to learn, take some risks, get known, all of those things. And then kind of as you advance, the opportunity to be on a private company board or a public company board could indeed turn up, and you'll be very prepared.
Absolutely. Well, and I know your programs really prepare everyone very, very well. I want to ask you your perspective because you have been in the boardroom for a long time.
Yes,
and
that's
you
true.
see opportunities for us to be even more effective in the boardroom and maybe see some of the, I would say, challenges and opportunities that we have in governance best practices, and those sitting around the table and their capabilities and their perspectives really have a lot to do with that. And I was curious if you had a view that you might want to share on gender diversity in the boardroom and the importance of us moving in that direction where we see greater diversity overall.
Right. So that's kind of a big question, but we'll focus
Sure.
on the last part of that.
Sure.
So as you mentioned, I joined my first board in 1999. So yeah, it has been a while. And when I went on to boards, typically I was the only woman on the boards that I served on. But that's no longer the case, I'm happy to say. So I serve on 3 boards currently. One of them, 30% of the independent board members are women, and on the other 2, it's 50%.
Wow.
So I think companies are understanding the value of having a gender diversity on the board.
Excellent.
And so, there are, like California is trying to push it through legislation, and BlackRock is trying to push it as an investor, which is probably all moving people in the right directions. But I think also companies are understanding that they're going to have a better discussion if they have better representation on their board. There's a lot of research that says it's the complicated decisions that benefit the most from having diverse points of view come together around a particular issue. And there are no more complicated decisions that have to be made than those that get made in the boardroom. Yes. So it's really important to have the diverse perspectives there, obviously even beyond gender. So most boards are moving in the direction now of having a matrix when they think about who to put on the board, and they think about the capabilities, the backgrounds, even the gender and the racial makeup, all of those things of the current board members, and then what do we really need as a company given the strategy that we're pursuing, and do we have any missing elements, and use that as the guidance for where they should be looking for talent when they then try and put a new person on the board. It used to be, it was all CEOs. That's not true anymore. It's some of them are public company CEOs that have had that experience, which is great, but often it's people with different kinds of expertise that are going to be really important to the company given the point that they're in their strategic journey. So that also encourages diversity because those people are coming from many different places.
That is an excellent point, Cheryl. And I think we see a similar trend in our work with boards. And I just think that, like you said, it's really all about the capabilities and the perspective that they're bringing and the capabilities needed for that way forward. There's probably a heavier slant towards technology expertise, the innovation, the disruption, the change management, the customer experience. There's so many of these areas that, to your point, it's about bringing in that kind of expertise and capability specifically and trying to round out all of the other great capabilities on the board.
And then obviously getting that group to work productively together is where all the power comes from. And so you need somebody chairing the board, whether it's the CEO or a non-executive chair, who has those capabilities to kind of pull all the voices in the room together in a productive way so that we can get a lot of input, but also a way of moving forward so that management's not getting, lots of different directions, but kind of one comprehensive view and one voice to work with as they take the company forward.
Excellent point.
And as you know, my partner Sheila Penrose is a fabulous non-executive chair at Jones Lang LaSalle, so she has those qualities in spades.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it is, Cheryl, it is a pleasure to speak with you today, and it's such a pleasure to be a part of your programs. Our heartfelt congratulations to you and Sheila for all that you have achieved and all that you still are going to achieve. So thank you for all you have done for all of us in business today.
And thank you, Nicole. And Grant Thornton is such a wonderful partner for us. And you are such a wonderful partner. So not only being a fellow of CEO Perspectives, but coming in today to share your life journey and your leadership kind of wisdom with our women in the Leading Women Executives program, and really being a model to the women from Grant Thornton who are attending in this particular program. You've been terrific at kind of taking the flag forward, and we really appreciate your support.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Nichole Jordan. To learn how Grant Thornton can partner with you to strengthen corporate governance, leadership, diversity and culture, customer focus, and technology and innovation within your business, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.